Hello, welcome to the newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's start with the headlines. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is in Seoul for a short visit. He met with President Byung-se to discuss Korea-Japan ties, North Korea issues, and to reaffirm Seoul-Washington alliance. President Byung-se's senior political secretary Cho Yun-sun resigned, saying she feels responsible for failed efforts to reform the pension plan for civil servants. The two Koreas engage in a war of words. South Korea condemns North Korea for verbally insulting President Byung-se. The president had criticized Pyongyang in the wake of reports about the execution of the North's defense chief. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry had some hard words for North Korea during a press conference in Seoul earlier today. He warned that military provocations and its rampant human rights abuses will only further isolate the regime. Our Hwang Sung-hee starts us off.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry slammed North Korea on Monday for its latest military provocations and human rights abuses. In a press conference following talks with South Korean Foreign Minister Byung-se on Monday, Kerry warned of stronger sanctions against Pyongyang for its recent test of a submarine-launched ballistic missile.
We are indeed talking about ways to increase the pressure and increase the potential of either sanctions or other means of making it clear to him that he is on a very dangerous course in the missile systems and continued pursuit of his nuclear weapons program.
Calling the latest high-level executions as one of the most flagrant examples of the country's reckless disregard for human rights, Kerry said the North Korean leader could ultimately be punished for the abuses.
And if their horrific conduct continues, it is hard to see how that referral to the criminal court would not take place. Their behavior is against all notions of conscience, all standards of behavior, anywhere in the world.
Despite the strong words, Kerry said Washington is seeking a peaceful resolution for the Korean peninsula, not further conflict, saying this will only be possible when Pyongyang is ready to deal with its nuclear program. Until then, he said Seoul and Washington will work together under an alliance that is stronger than ever.
Let me underscore, there is no daylight, not an inch, not a centimeter, not a microscope of difference between the United States and the Republic of Korea in our approach to the question of North Korea's provocations and its nuclear program.
Secretary Kerry also expressed the hope that successful nuclear talks with Iran next month will serve as a positive example of a more legitimate path to the global community for North Korea. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
And earlier today, Kerry paid a courtesy call to President Byung-se, and they agreed to respond firmly to North Korea's provocations through their combined defense capabilities. Referring to Pyongyang's recent submarine-launched ballistic missile test, President Byung stressed Seoul and Washington should send a consistent message calling on the regime to stop its provocations. Kerry urged the North to sincerely recommit to multilateral denuclearization talks. Ahead of her U.S. visit in mid-June, President Byung explained Seoul's efforts to improve ties with Tokyo, strained due to Tokyo's continued attempts to whitewash history. The U.S. has been stressing the need to bolster security cooperation among the three countries in addressing North Korean threats. And it looks like North Korea has no intention of negotiating with South Korea over the ongoing wage spat at the Inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex. Seoul's Unification Ministry says that on Monday, Pyongyang turned down Seoul's proposal to resume North-South Joint Committee talks on the management of the factory park. The talks have been stalled since last June. The ministry says it had to relay its proposal verbally as Pyongyang refused to accept it in print. North Korea has reportedly said, quote, "The current mood is not right for talks." In February, Pyongyang demanded a 5% pay raise for its workers. Seoul maintains such decisions must be reached through dialogue. The two Koreas are engaged in a war of words over recent events. Seoul denounced North Korea for the insult it doled out to President Byung-se after North Korea lashed out at the president for saying Pyongyang's reign of terror has stoked security concerns in the region. The president was speaking in response to intelligence reports about the regime's reported execution of its defense chief. Our Na Young-kyung has this report.
A venomous snake. That's how North Korea described South Korean President Park Geun-hye in response to her remarks last week about reports that Kim Jong-un had executed Defense Chief Hyun Yong-chol. The North waited a few days before reacting to the South Korean intel, but the lashing that started with its propaganda website on Sunday has continued. The regime's state-run Korean Central News Agency said Monday that President Park was throwing out thoughtless words that would come out of a mouth of a sleepwalking person. Later that day, Seoul rebuked Pyongyang for insulting its leader.
It's pitiful that North Korea seems to be revealing its standards by insulting the leader on the other end of a dialogue with remarks against humanity and women.
All of this comes amid growing security concerns surrounding the Korean peninsula. Pyongyang recently claimed it has successfully test-fired a ballistic missile from a submarine, and according to South Korea's intelligence agency, more than 70 senior officers in North Korea have been put to death since 2012 as Kim tries to cement his grip on power. Citing an unnamed source, South Korean media reports are saying that a minor executive officer in the North's ruling Workers' Party said he defected to the South last year because of Kim Jong-un's reign of terror. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon arrived in Seoul on Monday for a 5-day visit, his first trip back to his homeland in nearly 2 years. The focus of his trip is the World Education Forum in Songdo, west of Seoul, from Tuesday to Friday. On Tuesday, Ban is scheduled to give an opening speech at the forum. He will hold a press conference with UNESCO Director General Irina Bokova. The next day, he is scheduled to have meetings with President Park Geun-hye and Foreign Minister Byung-se. On the agenda for both meetings are Korea-UN relations, climate change, and Korean Peninsula security. Korea's rival parties are meeting as we speak to discuss unfinished business that has to be finalized during May's extra parliamentary session. Deputy chief negotiators from the ruling Saenuri Party and the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy plan to focus on reaching a fresh compromise on a stalled bill aimed at reforming the debt-ridden pension system for civil servants. The opposition party wants to stick to the original agreement to link those reforms to an eventual overhaul of the national pension system. Last week, top officials from the ruling party, the government, and the presidential house of Cheongwade made their own agreements on how to handle the reforms after backing away from the original agreement with the opposition. They said that a societal consensus is needed on the much larger national pension system, and they urged the ruling party to start negotiations with the opposition. President Park's senior political secretary Cho Yoon-sun has resigned after the president's drive to reform the deficit-ridden public employee pension system failed to get parliamentary approval earlier this month. The president's spokesperson said Cho, who negotiated the bipartisan reform bill with the ruling party, stepped down, bearing heavy responsibility for failing to meet President Park's expectations for the reforms. The president strongly opposes the idea of linking an expansion of the national pension coverage to the civil servant pension reforms, saying it calls for separate public consensus. The opposition party says the ruling side has backed away from their original agreement to link the two. The president has accepted Cho's resignation and will work to fill the position. Starting in December, customers will be able to open up bank accounts without having to physically visit the banks. The Financial Services Commission said Monday that it will allow such services as part of efforts to ease regulations in the financial industry and help boost the financial technology sector. With the revision, customers will be able to send in their scanned identification documents and go through interviews online instead of having to present the information in person at the bank. The decision comes on the back of the financial authority's decision to lift barriers that have kept fintech firms from prospering. Korea's top financial regulator added that it will encourage banks to equip themselves with systems to make indirect identification possible by the month of August. The number of foreigners living in Seoul reached an all-time high this year, and most of them were from China. The Seoul Institute reported on Monday that there were 268,000 foreigners living in the capital in the first quarter of 2015. That's more than 5 times the 50,000 reported in the year 2000. People from China accounted for the majority of the group at 72%, followed by other foreign nationals from the United States, Taiwan, Japan, and Vietnam, with just over 3% each. The The report also said the number of migrants from China has increased by more than 10 percentage points since 2006, while those from OECD states have dropped by 9 percentage points since 2004. And today marks the 35th anniversary of the May 18th democratic uprising that took place in Korea's southwestern city of Gwangju in 1980. Our Park Ji-won tells us more about the significance of this day in Korean history.
35 years ago in the city of Gwangju, more than 200 people were killed or went missing, and thousands were wounded during a bloody crackdown by government troops to quell the uprising against the authoritarian Chun Doo-hwan regime. Chun grabbed power in a military coup after the assassination of President Park Chung-hee in late 1979. Democratization movements swept the nation, and the clash between the government and protesters culminated in Gwangju on that fateful day in 1980. The May 18th democratic uprising is now considered one of the hallmarks of Korea's democracy movement. To keep the spirit of the movement alive, the Korean government designated May 18th an official Memorial Day in 1997. This year, around 2,000 people attended the government memorial service, including Deputy Prime Minister Choi Kyung-hwan, both rival party leaders Kim Moo-sung and Moon Jae-in, and ordinary citizens. Relatives of the victims of the uprising and local politicians and civic activists, however, attended a separate memorial service organized to protest the government's policy on a song that was symbolic for the uprising. March for Our Beloved was written in 1981 to honor those who died during the movement. It had been sung at the government ceremonies by all attendees since 2003. But in 2009, the conservative then Lee Myung-bak administration excluded from the main ceremony. Citing the song's appearance in the 1991 North Korean film, the administration said it could disrupt national unity. Since then, the relatives of the victims have held a separate ceremony, saying the government has degraded the victims by excluding the song. The National Assembly passed a resolution in 2013 urging the government to make the song the official song of the landmark democratic movement to respect the spirit of the uprising. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Moving on to a different story now, the word drone continues to evoke images of fierce-looking flying objects used by military for bombing, spying, or other secret missions. But according to our Kwon-so-wa, unmanned aerial vehicles are much more common these days, and in Korea, the civilian drone industry is just starting to take off. Take a look.
Right now, the camera filming me isn't on a crane or helicopter. It's on an unmanned aerial vehicle, or drone. Although Korea's drone industry is still young, it has immense potential. That potential is being reflected in the rapidly growing interest in drones. Once drones become fully commercialized, numerous businesses are expected to sprout out of them. UAVs could be connected with wearables used for geolocation to pollinate crops, fight wildfires, or replace guard dogs.
The boom kicked off as drones have become quite affordable and they are much easier to fly. Even people who have never tried steering a remote control device can learn how to fly a drone in 10 to 20 minutes.
Experts say there isn't yet enough domestic demand for drones to evaluate the size of the market, but they also expect that to change quickly.
Globally, the market directly and indirectly involving drones is expected to be worth $140 billion by 2020. If the government subsidizes the industry, we can create a market worth billions of dollars in the years to come.
Currently, the U.S. is the world's #1 military drone maker, and China is the top commercial drone maker. Korea may soon have the technology to join the club.
This drone is the most appropriate one to use in Korea, as it's able to withstand strong winds. This one is capable of conducting military surveillance. This drone has been designed to be used in the forest. And this small portable drone can be folded.
Korea has some obstacles to overcome as it lags behind in applying certain techniques in end products. Another issue is the regulations around UAVs. Right now, it's illegal to fly drones without permission in most cases. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
And that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching. Do join us again at 10 p.m. Korea time for more.